What is the status of Red Hill right now? And what else do people need to know about it?
The fuel is still there, still sitting above our aquifer, still a threat to our future and a threat to life on this island on Oahu. For over a year, we have been organizing, raising our voices, and demonstrating against Red Hill and calling for the immediate shutdown and defueling of this facility. And to this day, it has yet to happen. It has yet to materialize. And we have coming up against the US military has been like a David and Goliath story. It's basically community people and affected family members who have been super vocal about the situation. And unfortunately, the state of Hawaii and our elected leaders here have been pretty much the doormat for the US military. They have allowed this to happen. There was a huge spill of 27,000 gallons back in 2014. And for 8 years, our legislature and our elected leaders did nothing. They were told that this was inevitable, that it was inevitable that another spill would happen. And then what happened was 93,000 people on the Navy water distribution system that flows from Red Hill were poisoned. Children, families, and most of them were military families, which to all of our surprise, the military poisoned their own servicemen and women and their families, as well as other Oahu residents, civilian residents, and Kanaka Maoli. And they're threatening our people now.
So as Healani said, they began the unpacking. So essentially when the facility was put on pause, there was still fuel, about 1 million gallons of fuel in the pipes. So that was drained, but there's still over 100 million gallons sitting in the tanks. And the tanks themselves, they're 250 feet tall, and they sit only 100 feet above where we get our drinking water from. And they were constructed in the 1940s. So there are holes in the tanks, they've been leaking. There have been documented leaks from the late 1940s. So essentially from when they were built, they've been leaking. Some of the statistics show that there's about 5,000 gallons that leaks consecutively, like every year, just because they exist and they're old. In terms of the impacts, not only does this impact our drinking water, but on an island, this impacts everything that we do essentially. So if our drinking water is compromised, it will affect any sort of housing developments, because in order to get a permit, you need water. I was at a neighborhood board meeting last night. They're drilling new exploratory and testing wells in my community because the water for my house and the water in my community is now coming from somewhere else because the 2 wells that it drew from have been shut down. So 3 of our public drinking wells have been shut down as a result of this spill as a precaution. And so they're needing to drill emergency wells. We're in a water crisis and a water shortage right now because of that. As it said in the video, 20% of our island, where 20% of our island gets our water from, that well was shut down. The Red Hill shaft, which is the shaft that was pulling water and sending it into homes of a lot of military families and civilian families that have still never been compensated, tested at 350 times whatever the legal limit is for petroleum last December. It's appalling that there is a legal limit of petroleum that the government thinks is safe for someone to ingest, but whatever number that is, it tested at 350 times that, and that's the water that was being pumped into people's homes last November and last December. That people are still, experiencing symptoms from. It affects all cultural practices because every cultural practice that we have is tied to Aina. And on an island, we have springs going throughout our valleys and springs going throughout throughout our ahupua'a. And so those springs feed into streams that feed into the ocean. And so if we're talking about lo'ikalo or farming, or if we're talking about any sort of cultural connection to Aina, all of that is jeopardized. And so I think people need to understand kind of the gravity of the situation. Yes, we're talking about drinking water for specific people right now, but this has the potential to impact life itself on Oahu.
I mean, speaking to those stakes, right? Yeah, they're nothing less than the future of life on Oahu, and just also thinking about how much has already been lost, right? Like the Navy has basically stolen the futures for a lot of Keikioka a lot of military families and their children yet to be born, and a lot of these families, like the thousands of families who have been poisoned, like they're going to be dealing with the health repercussions of this for the rest of their lives. And they're already seeing like multiple health specialists, likely because this level of exposure to, petroleum hydrocarbons, as far as we know, pretty carcinogenic substance that you definitely don't want to be ingesting, let alone even inhaling. Like it seems to like really lead to kind of immunocompromise, which is, one of the worst things that you can experience as a patient of COVID, right? So what we're seeing is like a lot of folks with just myriad health effects that have extended way beyond their exposure to jet fuel, right? And it's going to require much more study to be able to draw any concrete causal connections. But part of the problem is like the Navy physicians and officials have been saying, we're operating off of the information we had at the time. We told you it was safe to drink because there were no studies saying that it didn't. Well, it's because not that many people have been exposed to jet fuel. These people are the test case, right? Mm-hmm. And so that this is I think I'm seeing it in the comments a lot too. Like there's a lot of doomerism that goes around issues like this. And I think not for no reason. Like this is like we live in very dark times against like the most genocidal, omnicidal polluter on the planet, the U.S. military, right? But I think there's a lot to be drawn from what has already been accomplished and what Oahu Water Protectors and what other community members have been able to build and are continuing to build. Including bridges of solidarity and understanding that never would have been possible prior to this. A lot of military families are finally getting, a view into what Kanaka Maoli community have experienced under the people who have said that they're the world's chief protectors, for well over a century, and there's also the fact that like in this really deep community organizing and hardcore mobilizing and agitating on the local, national, and international scale, we were able to extract a pretty huge world historic W from the Pentagon, and you don't come by those a lot, and like forcing their hand to announce that they would commit to shutting down Red Hill. And now the battle is just trying to make sure that they do it in time.